The dark side of first impressions, the Horn effect bias and its impact on your life and workplace. If you have ever felt harshly judged when you first met someone, then you could have been on the prickly end of the Horn effect bias. Or if you took an instant disliking to someone without getting to know them, then you have used the same bias on others. The Horn effect bias is a cognitive bias where we form a negative impression of someone based on a single negative trait or behavior. It's a mental shortcut that is hardwired into us that helps us process information quickly and efficiently. By focusing on negative traits, we hope to avoid potential problems. An example of this bias is, if we meet someone who is rude, we might assume they are dishonest or incompetent, even though we do not have evidence to support our assumptions. The Horn effect bias is the opposite of the halo effect bias, which is when we form a positive impression of someone based on a single positive trait or behavior. Although mental shortcuts are useful, they also lead to errors and biases when they are used without critical thinking. Therefore, when we are not conscious of it, the Horn effect influences us to overlook or ignore relevant information that might contradict our initial judgment. The consequences of the Horn effect bias. 1. Reduced opportunities. The Horn effect bias can limit our chances of success and happiness by affecting how others perceive and treat us. For example, if we make a bad first impression on a potential employer or partner, they are likely to reject us based on their biased judgment, without giving us a fair chance to show our true abilities or personality. 2. Poor relationships. The Horn effect bias can damage our relationships with others by creating distrust and resentment. We all want people to get to know us in our fullness. When they refuse or cannot see our good qualities, we feel misunderstood and not seen. 3. Unfair treatment. The Horn effect bias can lead to discrimination and injustice by affecting how we treat others. If we stereotype someone based on their race, gender or age, we might discriminate against them or treat them unfairly in various domains such as education or employment. Advantages and disadvantages of the Horn effect bias. Horn effect bias can help people make quick decisions based on limited information. It can protect people from potential harm or deception by making them more cautious and skeptical. The Horn effect can motivate people to improve their performance or behavior by avoiding negative impressions. The Horn effect can lead to unfair and inaccurate judgments that ignore the positive aspects of a person or a situation. Creates prejudice and discrimination against certain groups or individuals based on irrelevant factors. It can lower people's self-esteem and confidence by making them feel judged and criticized. How to overcome the Horn effect. We can reduce the impact of Horn effect bias but not completely get rid of it. Here's how to reduce its impact. 1. Understand it exists. The first step is to be aware that the Horn bias exists in all of us. Then you will notice it when you see it. It is especially important you see it in yourself. 2. Seek more information about the person. Before forming a judgment about someone based on a single negative trait or behavior, we should try to gather more information about them from multiple sources and perspectives. 3. Look at the context. We act according to the situation and context we are in. When you are looking at someone's behavior, put it in context of what they are dealing with at that moment. Someone who is nervous in large groups can be a different person in a one-to-one interaction. 4. Challenge your assumptions. After forming a judgment about someone based on one negative trait, we should try to test and revise our assumptions. Look for evidence that might contradict them. Be open to changing your mind when you see other positive traits. 5. Have balance by focusing on the positive. Instead of dwelling on the negative characteristics of someone's personality or performance, we should balance them with the positive traits. Horn bias effect in the workplace. Judging an employee or a candidate based on one negative trait or appearance, employers or recruiters may miss out on hiring or promoting the best talent, as they focus only on the perceived flaw and ignore the skills, qualifications, or achievements of the person. Forming a negative impression based on the first few minutes of interaction, the employer may not give the person a fair chance to demonstrate their abilities or personality. This will lead them to overlook or dismiss any positive evidence that contradicts their initial impression. Being influenced by stereotypes or prejudices, employer or recruiter may have unconscious biases against certain groups of people based on their race, gender, age, religion, disability, or other factors. How to avoid the bias during hiring process. Awareness. Educate hiring managers and recruiters about cognitive biases, including the Horn effect, to raise awareness of potential biases during evaluations. Encourage self-awareness among hiring professionals to recognize their own biases and prejudices. Comprehensive evaluation. Develop clear and objective job descriptions that focus on required skills and qualifications rather than personal traits or appearance. Create structured interview processes with standardized questions to ensure consistent evaluations. Evidence-based assessment. Base evaluations on concrete evidence of candidates' skills, experience, and performance rather than initial impressions. Use assessments such as tests, work samples, and practical exercises to evaluate candidates objectively. Diverse panel of evaluators. Include diverse individuals in the evaluation panel to minimize the impact of individual biases. Encourage panel members to discuss their assessments collaboratively to counteract potential biases. Structured feedback and calibration. Provide detailed and constructive feedback to hiring professionals regarding their evaluations. Conduct regular calibration sessions where evaluators discuss and align their assessment criteria. Why the bias occurs. There are several reasons why we might fall prey to the Horn effect bias. Confirmation bias. This is when we look for information and remember things that confirm our expectations. We will ignore anything that challenges what we expect to see. Negativity bias. This is the tendency to pay more attention to and remember negative information than positive information. Attribution error. This is when we attribute other people's actions to their internal characteristics, such as personality or motives, rather than external factors, such as the situation. Conclusion. The Horn effect bias is a common cognitive bias that affects how we perceive and interact with others. It can cause us to judge someone harshly based on a single negative characteristic, and ignore their positive qualities. This can have serious consequences for ourselves and others in terms of reduced opportunities, poor relationships, and unfair treatment. Biases save us time and energy, so we will never get rid of them completely, nor do we want to, but we can reduce their negative influence.